I am so excited for this show, man. You don't understand. There's been so much going on this past weekend. We had the E-League finals. We had freaking Red Bull Kumite. We had Combo Breaker. We got Smug on tonight, dude. That's gonna be awesome.
Steve, that was last week's show.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, it was terrible.
Oh dear.
You're watching Best of 3. 5. Best of 5. All right, sorry about that. You're indeed watching Best of 5 and not Best of 3, your weekly FGC talk show. I swear this is the last week Efren's out. He's on vacation with his wife. You will see him again next week. But as a small consolation prize, we do have John back.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
I like the shirt. I have to say.
The Legends of the Hidden Temple. It was one of my favorite shows as a kid. My ex-girlfriend got it for me, and now I wear it every once in a while. What
pisses me off, no one knew how to put that freaking silver monkey together. You put me on there, I ace it. I fail at everything else because I'm unathletic as hell. But give me that statue, I'm good to go.
You'll ace king it. And like every other week, I think we're going to start this week with a CPT recap.
Let's do it. Pretty light weekend in terms of Pro Tour action. You did have the launch Tekken event out in Malaysia, which was streamed by Spooky, which if you got a chance to see that was great. But in terms of the Capcom Pro Tour, there was only one event this weekend. It was the first online event for Europe, and this covered Western Europe, and that was won by Luffy picking up his second win of the year over Atrash. I can say his name, I swear. Pax ended up third. Significant result for him. He is the only player in Europe to have placed in the top 16 of all of the events so far out there. So he's been turning in great performances all year, and you see the rest of the top 8, Problem X up there, Mr. Crimson, some familiar faces. So what does that mean for the top 10 of the global standings?
What does it mean?
Nothing at all. Luffy moved into the top 15, but didn't crack the top 10. So that's the same as last week. Punk still on top, Anchan still in striking distance. And you see Justin Wong, Snake Eyes also in the top 10.
All right, so moving on from our non-eventful Pro Tour week, we can actually talk about a different game. We can talk about Marvel, which had a few different things happen this week, including, the joke we alluded to with Steve earlier. We did get a quote-unquote new trailer. However, in Ono's tweet, we found out that was not actually a new trailer. The trailer came out about a month ago. I believe it was indeed leaked. But we did see it a month ago, and you had hoped they had realized that.
It wasn't leaked. This was a trailer that the one that's on screen right now, that is new. That is Rocket Raccoon and Groot. But last week, just after the show, they tweeted out a trailer that we had seen last month, excuse me, and it got called up. And if you think, they're embarrassed about it, they just deleted it, it's still up. That tweet is still up promoting their brand new trailer that was a month old when they showed it. So great omen of things to come.
And I mean, that just really talks to what we've been talking about last week, was just the communication, obviously, between, the various branches of Capcom with, Ono, who's been the huge guy promoting a lot of these games, tweeting out what we'd already seen. It's pretty embarrassing. Not a big deal, though, I would say.
It wouldn't be a big deal if everything else with the game had gone smoothly. But knowing everything we know about Street Fighter V, from what we've seen so far with Marvel, it's just another nail. And I don't want to say nail in the coffin, but it's just another reason to be very hesitant about getting really excited for this game. I want to be excited for this game. I want this game to come out and be great. But you got to give me something to work with here.
Well, what about like a say a full roster leak? Would that make you a little more excited?
It depends on who's on that roster. Man,
Well,
it would be something if we had some sort of leaked roster.
I do believe we have an image here that shows a mock-up. Obviously, some of these are the images of the characters that have already been revealed and their portraits in Marvel 3, including the beautiful Chun-Li. And then some of them are mock-ups from other game of who was on the leak list. Now, the leak list seemingly has quite a bit of credibility. The leaker has done many, many things correctly for both Street Fighter V and now Marvel Infinite. So there's a good chance that these characters will make it into the game. I've seen a variety of opinions so far. I've seen people happy with it, people very upset with it. I think the notable thing is that the majority of the characters are returning from Marvel 3, which
I haven't seen one post, and I'm not even exaggerating, of people saying they're excited for it. It's all been negative
Mostly,
from what
yes.
I've seen thus far, and people are saying it's like you said, a lot of repeat characters from last time, and a lot of characters that are kind of like meh, whatever. And then you see like someone like Gamora coming from Guardians of the Galaxy, and people say, well, sure, Gamora's there, but we would have much rather had someone like Star-Lord, the main character, or even off the top of my head, I can't remember what's Batista's guy. What's his character's name? Drax. It just seems like a lot of the picks, people were really hoping for Venom, and he's not on that list, although he is. There's talk of him being DLC. But people, I mean, considering how much hype there's been for this game, seeing this list, and it's not official, but seeing this list, people are like, meh, I'm really super not hyped about these characters.
Well, the thing with games like these, with huge rosters, same thing with Injustice. There's no way you're going to please everybody. The universes of both companies, so expansive, so many characters we want to see in a game like this, and you can't have 100 character roster unless you're playing Mugen, which I wouldn't recommend paying $60 for Mugen. But what bothers me more than who makes the list is these plans, these alleged plans. I have to say this clearly because this was from another leaker where we're talking about 3 seasons of DLC already planned out. This is a much smaller roster than certainly Ultimate Marvel. This is a smaller roster than Vanilla Marvel. And yet we're looking at the possibility, if this is true, which is unconfirmed, of about half of the roster being DLC by the time the game's a year and a half old. That is very, very concerning to me.
You think it's like a movement toward we just want to make a quick buck off of this game as opposed to, give our fans a nod? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, there's that. There's the issue of we're already worried about this being a rushed game because of how soon it's coming out and how little we know about it. And this idea that half the characters that are going to be in there, they're not going to be in the game when we buy it. It just speaks like this is not going to be a $60 game. When it's all said and done, it's going to be $110, $120. And that's really, really off-putting to me.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they copied kind of the pay-to-play model of the PC games, except without making it free first, right? If the base of the game was free and you were buying add-on characters, I think people, there'd still be people upset because they're used to buying their $60 all-inclusive thing. But I think those people are ridiculous because it's been a long time at $60. Things are changing. But $60 to buy the game and then get half the characters in a year that you pay for, it's definitely a little bit weird.
It's not even to me that the $60 price point, I mean, that's a concern. But the comparison to other types of games is so weird because we've seen Killer Instinct take that sort of approach, and it's been successful because they provide a decent amount of content at launch. They let you try out those characters. They're doing that in a right way. Whether you agree with that approach or not, they're giving you as much of an opportunity as they can to try the characters and say, hey, if you like it, throw some money at us. If you don't, that's cool. Here, you're saying, okay, you get none of the benefits of paying for a full price game, but you get none of the benefits of a free to pay model either. It's like almost the worst of both worlds.
And I'll be honest, I mean, I actually don't mind the idea of starting with a smaller cast, but I think, as you said, if they're going to have $60 a full price game, I think it'd be nice to have some free DLC at least, right? You know, some DLC that just, we haven't finished these characters yet. We want you to learn matchups with the first 20 characters. You know, we want to really flesh out 20 characters, let you figure out the game, and then slowly release them so it's not a huge hurdle for new players. I think if you put it that way, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, the way it is, it just kind of looks like a bit of a cash grab, and it doesn't look good.
Well, let's hold off judging it quite yet.
Right.
Those are very real possibilities, and with Capcom's recent track record of stuff, I'm not super optimistic, but we will wait. We will see how it comes out, and maybe it will be good in terms of the way they release these characters and the initial roster and everything. So, I mean, right now there's nothing official. It's all leaks. So I want to pump the brakes a little bit and not get too far ahead of ourselves.
And I think, if like I said, if you look at any of these individual issues in a vacuum, it's not make or break.
Oh,
but
totally.
when you put all of that together and combine it with the track record of Street Fighter V, you've got a whole lot of reason to be concerned.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, if you can bring up the list one more time, I had a couple things that I did like about it and just a couple more notes. I think that they did a few things that people will really like. Obviously, people have been asking for a Darkstalkers character that wasn't Morgan or for Felicia for a long time. We get Jeddah in a Marvel game. I've seen most of the positive comments I've seen so far are basically, you know, oh, Jeddah's in the game, that's pretty cool. Oh, Thanos is back in the game, that's pretty cool. A surprising lack of women. I think there's only like 4 female characters in the game. I'm personally really excited for the Monster Hunter character, if the leaked list is to be true. I think there's a lot to work with there. You can have tons of different weapons, tons of different, you know, like costumes that are potentially there, different than what we have in the game. But overall, I think the biggest note is that hopefully some of the Marvel 3 characters that are in here that weren't as fleshed out, characters like Iron Man and Doctor Strange, who were much more linear in Marvel 3, I hope they're adjusted and a lot more complete in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
You know, fingers crossed on that.
And the last, you know, Marvel-related thing to talk about is that the Curly Circuit final was announced, and I think you had a little bit on that, Steve.
Yeah, this was something that we didn't get a chance to cover last week because so much happened. But this was announced at Combo Breaker. The finals of the Curly Circuit will take place in November in Las Vegas. The breakdown, it's going to be 32 players, 8 previous champions from previous Curly Mustache events, the top 22 in the standings of the Curly Circuit, and then 2 players who will qualify via last chance qualifier. So that will be very interesting to see. I'm interested to see what the reaction to that event is going to be, because it will go down, you know, month and a half, 2 months after the launch of Marvel Infinite. So are we going to see a big push for Marvel 3 to continue after this? Is this going to be a last hurrah? How much of that is going to depend on the quality of the game's launch for Infinite? So that's something I'm interested in seeing going forward.
I feel like Marvel is kind of already on the tubes. Marvel 3, I don't think a new game coming out will help that in any way, shape, or form, even if people don't like it. But we will see. I think the timing is definitely interesting, but it's probably what they could do. Moving on, we have other new games. We have, not only was Rev 2 released, which we talked about a bit last week and how they had the full demo and all that, but Tekken launched. And Tekken's launch was well favored, I would say. I think most people are happy with Tekken so far.
It's an interesting time for any game that isn't Street Fighter that's launching right now. We just saw Injustice, like, was it even a month ago? Not even a month ago. And then we have Tekken 7 coming out. And it feels like the general community wants to love anything right now. And there have definitely been some hiccups with Tekken. Things like there being quite a bit of input lag. Obviously, that's going to garner some attention, things like that. The online play hasn't been great yet, and it feels like that's something that they're still trying to figure out. And there are plenty of things to complain about if you wanted to. The fact that the game came out basically like 2.5 years or something like that after it kind of came out, right? Because we didn't get it here in the West until just now, and it's been around for forever. in the East. But people, despite all those things, people seem to really be liking it. They've just highlighted a lot of the good things about it, like the customization and the way the game plays, and everyone's trying to jump in on streams and explore it, and they want to learn about it and things like that. So there's been a generally really positive push from the FGC for Tekken 7.
Yeah, I mean, I want to chime in. I want to play devil's advocate a little bit, which is that I think that although, I mean, I picked up Tekken 7. I'm loving learning it. It's my first Tekken game. I've been in training mode for hours already. But I will say, in defense of Capcom, you know, Tekken 7 is not that much more complete than Street Fighter V is, if you want to be totally honest. The story mode is nothing. It's definitely not an Injustice story mode. There's no tutorials in the game whatsoever. The online was not working on the consoles. The PC online is great. But I do want to say that, you know, game launches tend to have some issues. So I do hope that gets looked at across the board.
Steve, have you played it yet?
I haven't had a whole lot of time with it because of work, but I picked it up. I'm very happy messing around with it. This is my first real serious foray into 3D fighters. I played a little bit of Tekken 3 at arcade, and I knew enough to know that mashing kicks with Horang leads to good things.
It's exactly how I played all the Tekkens previous. You could get through an entire arcade mode with 1/4 at like the movie theaters or the GameWorks just by mashing machine gun kicks with Horang. That was the extent of my Tekken experience too.
So, but coming from, you know, 2D fighters, I feel like the missing tutorials is a huge missed opportunity. There's a little bit during the story mode, just basically here are what the buttons do. And that's basically it. There are great resources on YouTube, on Twitter. I know King J, who we talked about a few weeks ago, he put out a very, very good 30-minute video on that. I tweeted it out earlier. But not having that in-game just seems like a really, really big mistake to me. You know, especially in this environment where so many people are ready to embrace something that it isn't Street Fighter V. That said, I think what is there is far more polished and far more... It feels right. You know, the game feels right. The gameplay feels right. Online for consoles is asked for everything outside of tournament mode. But when you do get in games, it does feel okay. Hopefully that's improvable.
I think someone in the chat said there's a patch releasing today, or did release today. So
I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. So hopefully that's right. Hopefully that fixes it. But even though the individual pieces do feel like there's the same amount of individual pieces between Street Fighter's launch and Tekken's launch, what's there in Tekken just feels so much better, so much more polished, so much cleaner than what we got with Street Fighter V. So I think it's partly rose-colored glasses and partly, you know, they are a bit more successful, in my opinion, at least.
So riddle me this. Yeah, because I haven't played it yet myself. I don't have it, and there's been a lot of talk, of course, because of all the eSports movement and things like that, and Street Fighter V being where it's at, appealing to both the casual and the competitive crowds. Without a tutorial mode, that sounds like right off the bat, Tekken 7 or the developers rather saying, we don't give a crap about the casual crowd. That's my first reaction. Now, I haven't played it yet, and you guys kind of have. So I want to know, how do you feel as far as how much it appeases to a more casual crowd? Because we already hear all the time that being a 3D fighter, with stuff with like Korean blocking and things like that, that it's a much more technical game, at least in the movement, which makes it even harder in some respects to pick up as a casual player, outside of obviously like, you know, machine gun kicks and just mashing Eddie Gordo, you know, breakdance fighting. But is this game at all appeasing to the casual player, or are they going to sit down, play it for 5 minutes, say, I don't know what's going on and the game's not telling me, and I'm going to go play something else?
I think it's appeasing in a way that is not necessarily introducing them to competitive fighting games. You can play dress up in the game, which is like, I mean, it's honestly a big deal. People really like to do that. I spent, before I even went in training mode, I spent an hour making Miguel into a shirtless cowboy. And the move lists, I mean, are a lot more people remember playing Tekken as a kid than Street Fighter that are totally casuals, at least in my experience. You know, the move lists are like 160 moves long. You can watch your characters do all the strings. You can learn all the character strings. And that takes hours and hours and hours, as opposed to in Street Fighter V, where you could do every move in the game in an hour total. Go ahead.
One of the other things they're doing, at least in story mode, is they have this thing called Story Assist, where if you hold down one of the shoulder buttons, the 4 buttons will do special moves instead of regular moves. Plus, you have the ability to change difficulty in story mode on the fly, and it won't affect the rewards you get. So they are catering somewhat, just not in a way that I feel makes them more likely to try online.
Well, and then I would also say that in this day and age where you can go online and go to YouTube or a site like Event Hubs or whatever, there's so many resources, like and at the click of your phone even, where you can go online and learn everything you would need to know. Not as accessible as it being one of the options in the game, but I mean, if the only thing was that they didn't have a very good training, layout for you, I think that that's something that can be pretty easily circumvented. So if that's its only sin against casual players, then I don't think it's the worst thing to happen.
No, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's got some other stuff. It's got like a turbo mode that everyone's memeing about on Twitter. Devil Jin can do like infinite eye lasers, and people are passing it off as the full game. There's a really cool slow-mo on a hit that will kill. And one interesting thing is that the hit doesn't have to actually kill. It's just if the characters are in the proximity where it may kill, it'll happen. So sometimes the match actually continues after the slow-mo.
It's hype every single time, no matter what. It's auto hype.
It's definitely really hype. We saw, I mean, I wish I had the Twitter video up, but Akuma doing FADC gun to end his combo, that was pretty funny if you saw that Twitter video. The game lends itself pretty well to, video making, which I would say Street Fighter V doesn't necessarily, because all the characters have the same costume and the combos are pretty easy to do, etc. So,
John, I want to go back to your point about the accessibility of sites like Event Hubs and SRK and all that stuff. For the people who watch in this show, most of you guys like fighting games, I'm assuming. So they know about Event Hubs, they know about SRK, they know about finding stuff on YouTube. But if you're a casual player, you don't necessarily know those things. And I feel like the game has to do more to reach those people. And it can be done in a way that doesn't impact the quality of the game you give to the, quote, hardcore players. I just feel like that's something that if Street Fighter V did a better job of that, if Tekken did a better job of that, I feel like we would be in a bit stronger position as a community with more players coming in, more players figuring out how they actually can play and improve and get better instead of, coming in, mashing buttons for a bit, complaining that it's too hard and then dipping out.
So one more thing that I personally want to know, at least to get you guys' opinion on in terms of Tekken 7, will this game at all pull away from the audience that Street Fighter V has? Will it take people away? And if it does, will it keep them, or will Tekken 7 be kind of more of just a flash in the pan, as we see a lot of competitive games be, where it comes in, it's hyped for the first month or so. I wasn't gonna name names, but yes, and then it kind of like takes its spot, at the lower down, and like the hardcore fans stick with it, but outside of that, everyone just kind of forgets it in a month.
See, I'm thinking that with the launch, it won't necessarily take away from Street Fighter, but it can certainly add to it can grow the size of its own pie. And that's fine. Even if it's not the number one game. I think if the launch continues to go, if they improve the issues that are there and they bring in new players, then you have an opportunity where maybe the pie grows. And maybe, not every event, but some events will have Tekken 7 in the main event slot, or close to the main event slot, and that's fine. It doesn't necessarily have to be the number one game in order to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
No,
at least in terms of competitive play.
I totally agree, and I don't think that I don't think anything that's not a Capcom game is anywhere within a year of taking over, Street Fighter or the upcoming Marvel Infinite Spotlight. But Tekken is the game that has so much popularity in other countries. It's way more popular than Street Fighter in Korea, and it's actually more popular than Street Fighter in Japan, where if they can get a foothold here with this game that a lot of people who I know played Street Fighter at least bought and are trying and enjoyed watching at Combo Breaker. It was definitely one of the most talked about events there. Then if we can get, more of these Japanese and Korean top players here to American events to play versus our top players, there will be more storylines, more people will pick up the game, and then yes, just like Steve said, maybe we'll have another event that people really, really care about at a lot more of these tournaments. And I guess that's a lot about Tekken, so we'll move on finally to Street Fighter. Street Fighter had its 2.1 patch come out in this past week. I had to buy a copy of King of Fighters 14 and give it away because they announced the patch an hour after I made that deal on the show. So thank you for that. And congratulations to Mike.
How much is King of Fighters 14 right now?
It was $30. I bought him, and I actually bought. It was okay. So the physical copy was $30. The online code was $60, and the steel book case edition was $33. So I shelled out that extra $3 and mailed it directly.
Nice.
Generous, so generous.
Very generous of me. So congratulations to you, Mike, for your copy of King of Fighters 14. But yeah, we had the 2.1 patch, and I'll let you guys talk about it before I rant.
Have you guys played it a lot enough yet?
I've played it.
You go ahead. You guys go ahead.
All right, so I jumped on almost immediately after it went live, that morning rather, and I was looking for, the first thing I was looking for were reduced load times. I clocked a few of when I was looking for ranked matches, and it was taking about 30 to 40 seconds on average, which if that continued as the regular, that would have been awesome. Once or twice, it took about 2.5 minutes, but nothing really beyond that. Flash forward to, a week later now, and I'm waiting for like 3 or 4 minutes kind of on the average for a ranked match. So in that avenue, meh. As far as loading up training and versus modes, it seems like it's about 7 or 8 seconds faster than it used to be, which is nice. But broadly speaking, I'm still going to my phone and looking at like Facebook and YouTube videos and stuff while I'm waiting to play Street Fighter V. So as far as that avenue goes, I don't know. I mean, it's a little bit better, but not really enough to make people, to make it like something to talk about.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I've said for a while, the biggest issues that I have with Street Fighter V aren't what happens between round one fight and you win. It's not so much the balance. There are certainly issues with the balance, but it wasn't so bad that you couldn't deal with it. It was everything that happens between you win and the next time you hear round one fight. All the stuff that, stuff in training mode, the loading times, the network capacity. What am I talking about?
The netcode?
Netcode.
Yeah, that thing. It just didn't do enough for me to really feel like this was a huge improvement. There's like minor improvements here and there, but it just felt like slightly different, which I don't need slightly different. I need a big change.
Well, and I feel like Mike, you have plenty of things that you're not happy about with it. So before we jump into that, I do want to say, were there any positives that you garnered from it? And I'll start with, they put a bunch of new potential for fight money out there, and you were pretty easily able to grasp up a good 150,000 fight money. There was 50K just for jumping on, which was nice. And then you could go through all like the new tutorials and whatnot, the new trials, and you could get up a pretty penny just for playing the game for a good half hour. So that was cool, and now I get to buy like more costume packs or whatever, or a new character if you don't have the season pass. So that was nice. Definitely doesn't outweigh all of the issues that are going on, but it's at least a nod.
Yeah, that's kind of that was kind of where I'm going.
That's your answer too.
Pretty much. I mean, the trials are nice, but like I said, I needed more out of this, and it just didn't deliver as much as I wanted or much as I needed.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the problem with this patch isn't it, and this is from a guy who like half of my tweets are defending Street Fighter V. I really like Street Fighter V. I love to watch it. I like to play it. I like a lot about the game. My issue right now is that this patch was announced months ago. And not only did we just get it now, but it was formulated months ago. Everything in this patch, gameplay-wise, is like completely out of date, in my opinion. There is nerfs to characters months into the season. I mean, like, Wolfkrone was super hype at E-League, right? Almost every setup he did is gone now. He has to recreate it. He has to do something different. He has to figure out some other way to get into the Capcom Cup Finals. Meanwhile, Balrog, who is almost unanimously considered the best character in the game, is completely unchanged. This is something
25 health, though.
This is
25
something
health,
they
that's a
made
game
like
changer.
a week into Season 2. No one even knew what was going on yet. I feel like they just like, either they had already planned these changes and just didn't get them in the first time, or they like listened to the first 7 complaints on Twitter. Like, almost nothing here is correct in my opinion. Every single new move looks like utter garbage. I mean, Cammy's air throw is already a meme for people who don't even play fighting games. Zangief's kick, like, I mean, you'll kick him from half screen, you teleport him, and he grabs the other leg. It makes no sense. The headbutt even looks bad. It's kind of, I don't like the headbutt at all. I don't like the fact that you can do that after a stun. There's just, I don't think they did almost anything right. Gameplay wise.
Well, but they changed Birdie's stupid headbutt, and they made his wake up like much more like it should be. He doesn't just get to do stuff for free. He has to make a decision, and there's a risk versus reward as opposed to this, I'm gonna random headbutt in the neutral all the time for no risk whatsoever. I mean, they made Vega a more viable character. They gave Ryu and Alex some buffs, and we'll see how those kind of pan out as to whether or not that makes those characters viable. But I mean, I completely agree with you on like the weird animations. Then I don't even think that we needed new moves for those characters, but that's kind of its own thing. The Balrog 25 health nerf is not getting at what was wrong with Balrog to begin with. But they did nerf Urien. They made his footsies not as strong, and he doesn't get to just like do whatever he wants after EX shoulder Well, I mean, EX shoulder is more negative, I should just say. So that character lost a little bit. So I do think that there were some successes in their balancing. It's just that the big glaring things that people were talking about, that being, you know, like Balrog and kind of like Laura, and then the addition of the new moves, those things I don't think were great successes. So, you know, the things that are talked about, not so much. But there are some things in the background that I do think are noteworthy, and I do think were positive.
That's true. I mean, it's certainly true. I think Fang got a lot better, which is something that people generally wanted. Ryu got the stuff back that people wanted. My issue, as I said, isn't only like, it would be one thing if I was sitting here saying, you know, oh, I know how to balance the game better than Capcom. Everything they did was wrong. And I do feel that way. But the issue isn't that, really, because, I mean, that's just a difference of opinion, possibly. The issue is that, as I said, nothing was changed. They came up with the idea months ago. They said it was going to be released months ago. And they were like months after that. And now they've released it along with the CFN update, and it just kind of makes the CFN update look like nothing. I mean, it's just, why did they have to make those changes so early and implement them so late? That really frustrates me, because I think it subsides the idea of patching as a whole. The idea of patching was that for this game, in between seasons, you know, they even up the game, and they said they screwed up a little bit, so they wanted to fix it. But then why did they fix it now, when so many players are going to get negatively affected and other players are going to be completely unaffected, despite the fact that maybe they should be? I still like Street Fighter V. I'm still going to go to all these tournaments and watch it and talk about it and do this show. But I'm just frustrated, really.
See, for me, the timing doesn't really bother me. You know, if a change improves the game, I don't care if it's the day before EVO. I don't care if it's the day before Capcom Cup. If it makes the game better, you make the game better. My thing is, does this patch make the game better? A little, not significantly. You know, so, but if it was a significant change, I wouldn't care. You know, you could come out middle of the grand finals of Capcom Cup, and I'd be cool with it.
I'll give one more small thing, gameplay wise, because I think this got cut off the other week, but in case it didn't, I won't go too far into it. I think the removal of jump back tech was a bad thing.
That's the thing that all of the pros are worried about and saying that's going to be the biggest deal. And I mean, I don't want to go too far into it, like you said. But in a game that's all offense and very few defensive options, and you took away the one defensive thing that they found, I mean, I think it speaks for itself when all of the pros that get interviewed and stuff are saying, that's the thing that I'm most worried about. That's the thing that I wish wasn't going away. I'm scared of that. It's like, we'll see. We'll see. But it's going to be even more offense. It's going to be even more rush down. It's going to be even more turn punches and stuff. So here we go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of offensive situations in this game that are very linear without jump back tech, such as, Ibuki dashing up to you after her command grab that's +2, and doing a throw or a shimmy, that were much less linear with jump back tech. You got to read that jump back tech was coming and punish that. I thought it was more interesting than it was bad. But other than that, the changes aren't really that huge. So I guess while that's part of what I'm complaining about, it also means that other than a few players, I think Laura players are probably the most affected by this due to, losing that big command grab setup. I think the results will stay pretty similar on the tour, unless there's some pro player who just can't live without jump back tech. Maybe they'll be screwed. Outside of that, we had the 2.1 patch. We got tournaments coming out. Oh, here's the other thing we got. We got Bud Light eSports Mach 2.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it, guys? Because I don't know.
It's been around for a year. I'm still not sure, to be honest.
Well, here's what we know you get. You get a cool Bud Light fridge. You get to ride around in a Bud Light car. Was that a thing? But I don't know. Is this a sponsorship? Do they send you to events, or do they just? Because I mean, like Filipino Champ won it last year, right? And he was still with Panda Global at the time, and then ended up moving to his current sponsor. But I don't think that. I mean, I don't know. Did Bud Light send him to events and stuff?
They had him go to, like, I think it was E3. He played Shaq, but other than that, it's just.
And the Shaq thing that didn't even work, right? Didn't that have stream troubles and stuff?
I don't even remember. I wasn't really paying attention to Shaq. I love you, but I just don't care about watching you play Shaq Fu. I'm sorry.
I see
Please
all
don't
of
hurt
these
me.
things, like what you're seeing on the screen right now. I know Chris T has been going in, I think, harder than anybody, trying to promote and get votes and stuff like that. And then you see Jay Wong there, but everyone just throwing Bud Light all over the place, and you go, okay, well, Bud Light's very obviously getting their time in the spotlight in the FGC, but I don't see what it is that Bud Light's giving the FGC with all of this. And I want there to be a thing. I want this to be a harmonious relationship of give and take and whatnot. I'm very happy to have Bud Light as a huge sponsor and all the potential that they have. Be a part of this community in whatever capacity they want. But with this current setup, I don't see what it is, and I'd be happy to learn.
I'm in the same boat as you are. I hope we're wrong too, but I mean, from what I understand, Champ rode around in a fancy car last year and wore a hat, and I haven't seen anything else since then. So I mean, I don't know if they're like fueling him up with tons of Bud Light every tournament. I don't know what exactly is going on, but it sounds like to me they're using the FGC in 1 month as a cash grab rather than actually giving anything at all. So maybe I'm totally wrong there. But
Joke's on them. We're poverty.
I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Well, that means we're going to get Bud Light, right? As opposed to any other kind of beer.
I mean, some of these choices were a little weird. I mean, Justin Wong and Christy, those ones make some sense. Christy was there last year, super fratty, loves beer. Great choice. Justin Wong, probably the most famous fighting game player in the U.S. Peter's a friend of mine, but I mean, I don't think he's gonna win this one. I don't think Martin's gonna win this one. You sounded like you had something to say, Steve.
Well, yeah, I wrote an article for .eSports about this last year when it was first announced, and my criticism of them was that the 4 choices they made, they weren't necessarily all-stars. They were good brand ambassadors, but they were promoting them as all-stars, and they weren't really all-stars. This year, it sounds like they're going in the completely opposite direction. They picked 4 very, very good players this year, but 2 of them would be very good brand ambassadors. 2 of them I question. If we mention Flash's name, what's the first thing that comes up?
Money.
Exactly. It's a negative connotation. If we bring up Marn, what comes up?
The failure of his sponsorship and then trash talking, yeah.
All of these negative connotations that if you're a $1 billion company, I don't necessarily know if you want to tie your boat to that anchor. That's not a size joke. I apologize. It's just very, very puzzling how they came up with these 4 names in particular.
So
if you want to get Justin Wong something, and it seems like it's going that way because he's one of the most popular fighting game players in the world, just say, hey, Justin, you want to do this? Sure, done. But tying this whole contest thing to it, I don't know.
it seems to me, and I hope I'm wrong, I would be gladly corrected if this isn't the case, but it seems to me like Bud Light's just kind of going, oh, esports is this thing. Okay, well, here's some money. Just go through the motions. Give them a fridge. Give them Bud Light shirts. Let them be in a car for a minute, and we're gonna, here, you guys fetch, do it, and we're gonna go do other stuff that's bigger, and are completely like otherwise unplugged. And like you said, they don't know who's an all-star and who's not. Like, they haven't done much of their research on which of these players should be, brand ambassadors and which shouldn't. So yeah, I mean, I would love, like I said, I would love to have Bud Light at a legitimate and at a real capacity here, but it doesn't feel like that's where we're at right now.
I'm in the same boat, and on the same topic, our block grab this week is somewhat related, and we're going to be talking about this week. What categories do we want to see get into FGC sponsorships? So this means I think we're leaning towards categories that aren't already there. So not stick companies, not, energy drink companies. We've already got that. But what companies do we want to see that we don't have right now? And the first choice suggested by Steve, and I'll go last, is deodorant.
Man, I suggested this because, the things we could do with some deodorant sponsorships at events would be amazing and much, much needed. But I'm having second thoughts because I feel like if a deodorant company were to come in, it would most likely be Axe. And Axe, a lot of people just don't understand that it's a shower enhancement, not a shower replacement. So if you had like thousands of small cans of Axe at Evo, that would just end up being a recipe for a disaster. So against my initial judgment, I have to block.
That is interesting. It's not something I've ever thought of. I'm always just like, deodorant and FGC, please put those things together more. But yeah, okay, so body spray, absolutely not. Because, I mean, we've all been in high school. I've been in a men's locker room. It's terrible. And people don't know how to use it. So yeah, on that idea, I have to agree with Steve. But I still can't take the prospect of there being like little deodorants, like just like deodorant bins in the middle of like CEO or something like that, and that just being accessible for everyone that may have forgotten. Because sometimes people go on FGC trips and they forget their deodorant. It happens every once in a while. And so for people to be able to have that kind of a thing there, people like, free samples and whatnot, I would be absolutely for it. So I still, even though there is some hesitation given what Steve just said, I will still grab at the idea of more deodorant in the FGC.
You mostly said what I wanted to say there. I think on like a serious note, I think, people sometimes get offended when you talk about smell, they get up in arms about it. I think if you humorously implanted deodorant as a sponsor in the FGC and Old Spice or Axe or whoever was providing, as you said, these big deodorant bins or something like that at the front, I think it would be both very funny and I think it would help people out. I think events would smell better. I think people, as you said, who forgot the deodorant or, don't own deodorant may finally own some. And I think overall it would be almost purely a good thing. I think it may help them out. I think it may be good on their end. I don't think it would be like these places don't need to sponsor players even. They can sponsor events, as you said. And I doubt sending, 1,000 sticks of deodorant even is that expensive for a company like that. So I mean, I think it'll happen, and I think it should happen. So I'm going to grab.
Fingers crossed.
The next one we had was fast food. We already see in a lot of, and I haven't seen this as much in the FGC in particular, but a lot of esports teams are sponsored by, you know, like gamer fuel and stuff like that. But what about fast food as a whole? Like, would you want to see McDonald's Daigo?
I don't think we necessarily want to see fast food companies sponsor players. I think I want to see fast food companies sponsor events, set up a food truck outside, give us another option to eat. There's one event in particular that I think would be a great partnership with McDonald's. There's a bit of history between Evo and a particular sandwich. Of course, I'm talking about the McArch. So to make that partnership happen, I'm going to grab.
I don't know about fast food in general. That's up in the air. You guys can discuss that all day. But Arby's needs to be part of the FGC. They have, if you haven't seen Arby's Twitter, it's amazing. And they on the regular do a lot of gaming culture references with they carve out their boxes and things like that to reference games and whatnot. Arby's already seems like it's super on board, and I mean, whether you like it or not, the food I'm saying, I think Arby's would be great. I would proudly wear the Arby's hat on my shoulder or something like that as a sponsor.
I'd wear it as a hat. Straight up. Give me the big tall cowboy hat with the neon on it. I'm good to go.
I can see a Arby's just roast beef for a hat on you, Steve. It'd be hilarious. Just a bunch of roast beef on your head.
I guess getting to me, there's a minor precedent for this in terms of food, at least in general. Jabali had at least CEO Taco and I think CEO a card that you got with your badge that was actually a 10% discount or a 5% discount at a lot of local places, including the Popeyes across the street. And in Orlando, there is a ton of, fast food chains in the area. And that was not only somewhat useful, but entertaining, funny. I think it probably worked out for the restaurants and for the tournament itself. So that was pretty cool. As far as sponsoring players directly, as you said, I think any company that sponsors players we're down for. It's just whether or not it would be useful for them. Yeah, I kind of lean more towards the whole tournament thing, but I think, food companies being involved in tournaments and helping out is a grab.
Oh, and shout-outs to Jabali this year. I don't know if you've seen his Twitter, but CEO is next weekend, right? And he's actually gone and tweeted Old Spice, Popeyes, and then maybe it was Axe, I forget the third one, saying how many retweets do I need before such and so company will sponsor CEO or give 500 free samples of deodorant or 500 free nuggets at CEO or whatever it is. So he's already on the ball with that.
If any company sponsors a player, any fast food company, it has to be Arby's sponsoring Arby.
Arby's Arby.
Thank you, Ryu Guitar Freak.
All right, and then did you guys have any other ones?
No, pick one more at most.
Yeah.
I think that's probably enough for our block grab then.
Yeah.
All right.
As long as we can't top Arby's RB.
No, that's a good ending note.
That's why I cut it off. Is I actually heard Arby's RB and I said that's the end of block grab. So we actually grabbed all of it unanimously, I think.
No, I'm blocking the deodorant.
Oh, you're still blocking it because you don't want the axe showers.
I'm still blocking.
Okay.
Stinky
shower
Steve.
Enhancement, not shower replacement. That's
if anyone, by the way, wants to suggest a block grab topic ever, feel free to tweet at Best of 5 Show with your ideas. You can get things that are more controversial than this. You can tweet anything you want. I won't guarantee we'll say it, but we might. And that leads us to the end of the panel. So this week we're actually going to be leaving John on for the interview and ditching Steve Ace King off suit. So goodbye, Steve.
Bye.
And this week, of course, we're going to be talking to none other than Gerald Lee of Core A, or I think it's a pun on Korea Gaming. Gerald was actually one of our first guests back when we were Best of 3. And this was before he started making a lot of these videos that he's now famous for. I mean, we had Gerald on as kind of an ambassador of the Korean FGC to talk about that and talk about some of the video work he'd been doing. But now, Gerald is kind of blown up in the community, and he's actually the maker, if you don't know directly, of those Core A gaming videos. The most recent one being about, lowering the skill gap, but he's also talked about many other things. And
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry. So I think the first question we had was, directly about your newest video. How did you start making that? What was your inspiration?
Basically, I mean, for the record, I'm a big fan of Street Fighter. I've been playing. I've clocked 700 hours into the game. A lot of people thought after the video I didn't like Street Fighter, or or something like that. People have been using the videos to be like, the case against Street Fighter. It's still my favorite game, fighting game right now, even with all the new games coming out, and it's the game that I play the most. But there's kind of a zeitgeist with Street Fighter V, and I don't know if it's one of those things that happens with every Street Fighter game, but this, like, recently there's been kind of this maybe negativity or just this kind of vibe with the direction the game's going in, and a lot of these players it's just kind of a bummer to hear. To hear all these players just being like, yeah, I mean, the game is, like this. It still has the input lag and all this stuff. And, it's an esport now. And, of course, you guys probably saw those Born Free interviews. And it's been, there's something going on. And the video is kind of my best attempt at trying to figure out what's happening. What is it about the game that's kind of, the direction of the game that's making people feel this way. And it's, I try to be as careful as possible, to be as fair as possible with the video. And I think I succeeded, but there are a couple of things that I thought I could do better with the video. But yeah, it's just kind of a way for me to explain to myself and to other people kind of what's happening.
All right. So going a little further into it before we talk more about the video specifically, what is the process like for making these videos? I mean, obviously a lot of it is just footage that's already out there. What got you started making these in the first place outside of just this video? Why were you like, I need to be the guy to break down everything that's going on with Street Fighter today? Because, I mean, that's really what you become.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, the channel kind of started off as like, a channel to promote the Korean FGC, do some interviews, and this was during a time when there wasn't much access to the Korean players, and so I just kind of took the opportunity. I was just a guy with a camera, and I started, I did the infiltration interview and Punko and all that, and at a certain point, there was a moment where I saw the Pacquiao Mayweather fight at Arcade Stream. I was really excited for it, and I enjoyed the fight and everything. But that same year there was Evo 2015, and I also watched that with friends who don't care about fighting games, and realized how excited they got. Like, these people, they don't know how to throw a fireball or do a shoryuken, but they're getting so into it, getting so hyped. And then after that, I saw the Jimmy Kimmel video, basically, making fun of gamers, for watching gaming. I'm like, this is kind of a discrepancy here. I gotta say something about it. So I thought, what's the best format for this kind of thing? And I thought it was the video essay. So basically, I kind of, I put a clickbaity title, my best clickbait title, and just made a video, just kind of a case for fighting games. And it was kind of controversial. I wasn't very fair to boxing. I did an audio commentary about that. But yeah, it was supposed to be biased, and it was kind of I felt like there needed to be a voice from the other side kind of talking about this kind of stuff. So after that, like, all this, I had conversations with people, fighting game friends and non-fighting game friends, and just kind of culminated into a video. I also have video making experience. I do it for a living. So like the technical stuff was all there. So that's how that video was made. And then afterwards, like, every one of my interesting fighting game conversations I've had, I just, make notes and then I do some research, and then I it's majority research when I'm writing this stuff, because it's an analysis. So I spend most of my time researching, and then the video itself, like recording and then like doing the funny graphics and stuff, that's actually really easy for me. So that's kind of the gist of how it started and the process.
How long does a video like this kind of take? Not so much like the infiltration interviews or things like that, but one of these, like, really, you sit down, you think about it, they're very thoughtful, they've got tons of little graphics going all over the place, but it seems like, to me, you sit there and spend like hours and hours and hours researching just like psychology, and then you would research gaming psychology, and then you would research like exactly what's going on and kind of get the climate and the temperature for the current, whatever event or whatever trend is going on in the community. And it seems like these are, I think they're really well done, really well thought out, but it seems like it would take forever to put one of these things together from start to finish. So how long does it normally take you?
So yeah, the average video takes about 20 to 40 hours, but the latest one took a little bit longer because I've been a lot of developments and lots of things happening. Sometimes it causes a delay, but yeah, I've 20 to 40 would be my best estimate, and that includes like all the research and everything. So yeah, but every video is different. Like one video about that I did on graphics. Oh, this is my cat. Sorry. So one video that in particular. Oh no, they're infesting the table a lot. Let me get them off.
Feel free to show the stream if you want.
Yeah. So this is Poncho. I thought it was a girl at first, but my vet told me no.
Should have named it Poison.
Pablo. Yeah, Pablo right here. Yeah, my first cat. Both adopted. All right, they're out of the way. Okay. What's up? All right. Okay. All right. So yeah, video topic. Yeah, it takes about 20 to 40 hours to do these videos, and the reason why I put all, like, I go into psychology and do all this kind of different research is because it's my biggest inspiration is basically like the science channels on YouTube, Veritasium and Vsauce, and educational channels like CGP Grey. So it's kind of the concept of tangential learning. Basically, nobody likes to learn about stuff by itself, but people love a good explanation. So yeah, basically, that's how it came about. I'm sorry if that didn't.
No, that makes total sense. Yeah, and so like the idea of and that was how I learned in school too. I never wanted to learn just things isolated. I want to learn how they work within like the whole. And obviously, anyone that's clicking on Core A Gaming videos are very much involved in the FGC. They want to learn about these kind of things. So, but yeah, there have been plenty of times watching your videos where I go, oh, that's just a normal like human psychological trait, or commonplace thing, and we're applying it to fighting games, and that's beautiful to me. I really appreciate that kind of a like a synergy. So,
and you already addressed this a bit when you talked about the fact that you've played hours and hours of Street Fighter. It's your favorite game right now. My question is, given that a lot of your videos, and for the people who haven't watched it, we just had it up on the screen. I'll link it in the chat later. What if you were going to make a positive Street Fighter V video? What would you talk about? What would your be like? Why is Street Fighter V, a great step in the right direction, or is there none?
So yeah, Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V has done a lot of really good things, and it's kind of, people don't see that because there's a lot of mistakes that Capcom has made that kind of overshadow the good things they're doing. So crossplay is huge. Having to never worry about what platform your friend's on when making a lobby that's a game changer, and that's been working great for me. I've been playing matches and with a huge mix of people, and combining that pool, the pool of players like that, is really good for the competitive aspects of the game. The thing, for my channel, more than like just like talking about positive aspects of one game like Street Fighter V in particular, I like to talk about kind of like the bigger aspects. Like I made a video on Hadoukens, for example. Like most people think it's spam. Casuals be like, why are you throwing so many fireballs? And then game companies are like, oh yeah, fireballs not good for viewers, so we should nerf that, or they might get those ideas. So I think an important thing is to kind of educate the population on that kind of stuff, and so I kind of talk about fireballs, like why do we like fireballs? Why do we like Hadoukens? And that's an interesting question, because it's there's a game there, and that game's been part of Street Fighter for a long time, and it's been more emphasized in some games than others. Some games it's not nearly as emphasized, but it's something that I think is valuable for the franchise, and it's something that a lot of the top players, they enjoy. So so in terms of like what I like about Street Fighter more than just like a particular game, I like to talk more about the just the concepts behind what makes Street Fighter, and even Street Fighter 5. Okay, Ryu can't really zone like he used to in other games, but I mean, you still have like Guile, who's very much a zoning character in Street Fighter 5. So I mean, I put a lot of Street Fighter 5 footage, particularly Daigo versus NuckleDo, Tokido versus NuckleDo, in that video. So that's kind of how I approach like the beauty of Street Fighter, instead of just a particular a game. But yeah, I mean, there are aspects of each game that has their strengths, and yeah, I don't think Street Fighter is an exception. But yeah, I just haven't gotten around to making videos specifically on that.
If you could go to Capcom and make one demand, or just highlight one of your preferences to change one thing about Street Fighter 5 to make it better in your own eyes, what would it be?
It's definitely the input lag, without question. That is, I mean, so according to Dr. Garfield, Richard Garfield, Magic the Gathering creator, luck is essentially uncertainty in outcome in game design. And I mean, luck is really tricky. I wanted to unpack it more. The video was going to be twice as long. It's a 14-minute video. Could have been almost 30 minutes, but there's no way that I could reasonably finish the video in time. I had this whole section about luck and skill, and how it's a false dichotomy. And one thing that's certain is that there is a certain uncertainty to having that input lag. Now, you could get used to input lag. Like if that's the only thing that you had, like if 6.5 frames of Street Fighter is the only thing that you've ever had, you could get good at that particular thing. But if you're coming from like lower input lag, then you have to learn. You have to play into it. I think Alex Myers made a comment on the video about that, about how you have to play into the lag, play with the lag, and it's it does change your strategy. And offense is better. Playing a reactive game is going to be nerfed by that input lag. So it's just, that's one of those things where it's kind of like, it's almost like an objective performance problem. And so input lag is definitely one of those things. To be honest, like the aggressive play and stuff like that, I mean, I think the players are definitely like feeling the pressure of the game, the stress. There's the whole thing about how Street Fighter 5 is stressful. I don't play tournaments to win. I go to the tournaments, I have fun, I get bodied, I'll get some wins, maybe I'll cause an upset, and I'm happy. So personally, like Street Fighter 5 has been really fun for me. And the only thing that's been bugging me out is you did the DP in time, and you get bopped, or I'm playing Nash now, so EX Scythe. You see that yellow flash just for that split second. So it came out, but you're like, oh man, like maybe if only had a few more frames of
2 frames faster. Yeah.
Faster. Yeah, I would have gotten that anti-air, and it's just kind of you can feel it. I mean, if you clock a game 700 hours, Street Fighter 4, I clocked in at like I think 1,200 hours according to Steam, and yeah, you notice these things, and it's definitely kind of makes the gameplay, less fun. So yeah, that would be the one thing. Other things like, the aggression, like even Balrog doesn't really bother me because, I mean, I could do that to, Javit's made all these videos where you can kind of, kill people very quickly. So yeah, I know there are problems with them, but as I said, I'm not like, it's not like my tournament life or my career is on the line. So that's just me personally.
You're going a little further into all this, and we can and will continue to pick your brain about stuff in Street Fighter in general, but I want to know a little bit more about, the rest of Core A. Obviously, you said it started as a way to showcase the Korean FGC, and I'm kind of wondering how you think that's been going on. I mean, the Korean FGC has like drastically increased almost every year, I would say, in terms of visibility. We had Infiltration, obviously, as the, dynamo of Street Fighter V for a while. And his results have gone down, but, Punko, who was famous in SF4, has had his results go up. We have newer players to Street Fighter V, at least in terms of to the public knowledge, in Zizzy and Verloren. How do you feel like the Korean FGC is improving and becoming more known, and what is your role in all of that?
So, yeah, I mean, basically, there's the Street Fighter 4 phase, and then there's the Street Fighter 5 phase. So during Street Fighter 4, like I pretty much just kind of, gave a media outlet for some of these players, and but they had already made their name and everything, so it was kind of they were already out there and everything. But with Street Fighter 5, like it's the new players. A lot of the new players are coming from the King of Fighters scene, actually, and like. The players are actually preferring Street Fighter V over the new King of Fighters, and so this is why you see a lot of top players, a lot of like top Street Fighter V players from Korea, the new ones. A lot of them do have King of Fighters backgrounds, and so that kind of explains that influx, and they're really good fighting game players in general. So I guess my role in this is kind of like, it's kind of funny when I go to a Korean a fighting game event. I'm just that shitty Ken player, basically. I'm not Core Gaming or anything. So, but people do know me, and some people have been following the channel, but it is an English speaking channel. So, there is kind of a limitation to, to that sort of thing. But whenever there's a chance, like tomorrow, I'm going to interview Saint and JDCR, and it's kind of, I feel like this is kind of my contribution to the Korean fighting game community in general, just to kind of get these players out there, let them speak in Korean to be able to express themselves fully, and then subtitle it and do stuff like that. So if there's any role, it's kind of that role. It's not a huge role, but I think it's definitely good for the players that they have that. So I am planning to do stuff with Zizzy, NL, and Verloren and those guys. So
I mean, it does seem like it's had a success outside of, as we said, just the videos. I mean, I'm seeing right now that Infiltration's Guide to Beginner Street Fighter has over 100,000 views, which in the FGC is a pretty good amount of views. It all makes me wonder if there's like more in plan. Like, could there be a website where Infiltration and Zizzy go over new stuff every week, stuff like that? It seems like there is a lot of tight-knit stuff going on over there that's really nice and fresh to see, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, media is always hard to do. I mean, you guys do media, and it's kind of you kind of have to set the date and get everyone together to do stuff. The Infiltration video was actually that was made possible by ViewSonic Gaming. So shout outs to them. They've made that whole series possible. So so yeah, I mean, there's room for this kind of stuff, but it's like it takes a lot of resources and time, and it's I would love to see more FGC kind of content, FGC related stuff from Korea, and yeah. So but yeah, I'm doing my best to try to do that on my end.
And then you touched on this briefly a bit when you said, yet again, you love Street Fighter V, all that. But a lot of, with the Born Free interviews and with Infiltration talking about Season 2 sucking, and with even some of your videos, we've seen a vast majority negative press, as I think you called it I don't even remember what you called it, some German word. But we've seen a lot of that. Does there need to be a devil's advocate, do you feel? Does there need to be someone talking about the good? Do you think that the negativity in any way hurts a newcomer's view of the game and maybe they're buying the game or learning the game?
Yeah, so I mean, there's always going to be, that component. But then it's like, I mean, it's, there has been a lot of support for Street Fighter V already. Like, I mean, Infiltration. So I've been interviewing. I probably interviewed Infiltration the most out of anybody, and he's like, he was so pushing for Street Fighter V is ridiculous. Like, it's despite his reservations about it, he's very he wanted the game to succeed. Obviously, you want Street Fighter to succeed if you're a Street Fighter fan. And actually, I think that's part of the reason why Infiltration did so well at the beginning of when Street Fighter V came out. He was the guy who took the beta so seriously. Like, everybody else was like, oh, it's going to change at the end, so I'll mess with it when the game comes out. Infiltration was grinding the beta with the limited time that you had to, remember the betas where it was like you had a window to play, and he would just take Nash and like he would like master every like patch or iteration of Nash that they made. So he was, he was very gung ho about Street Fighter V. Of course, everybody was, wanted to succeed and everything. So it's there is kind of a shift in, I mean, especially with the Season 2 patch, and I think it's kind of that thing where I mean, I made a whole video about it. So yeah, I mean, it's, there are counterpoints. People have somebody made an article, drunkardshade.com. I retweeted it. It's it's kind of in defense of Street Fighter V, but I mean, it's not so much, I guess, like the video that I did, I don't feel that it's like, my intention wasn't, screw Street Fighter V, like it's a bad game. It's kind of more about the overarching thing that's going on. And if you remember, there's like the part with Seth Killian at the end, talking about developers and players going, developer and player aligned interests. So so I think that's kind of like the bigger issue at hand. And esports is great and all, but what I don't want to see is what happens in sports. If that's a part of esports, then I think is kind of a shame. It's when the league or the organizers or the companies, them and the players have like a huge conflict. And what you see in real sports is player unions. You see player strikes. It's just it gets really, really ugly. And the NFL had the player lockout. They made a movie about it, The Replacements. That's not the kind of thing that I would want to see in this new esports age. And it's already kind of there. You see like you see like the players and the companies. They're huge odds. And I don't know if that's the logical outcome, but it'd be nice if we could all grow together, I think, with more communication and stuff like that. And maybe it's a pipe dream, but yeah, that's just how I feel.
Well, do you already have any idea for what your next Core A video is going to be? Do you already have it kind of like working, or do you figure it out when you figure it out and then just immediately jump into those 20 to 40 hours and then crank it out?
Yeah, so I have a list of like probably like 200 ideas for videos, but I stopped using that list because it's just there's so many topics to like tackle and talk about, and so many interesting topics now that the next one, there's one of two ways I'm going to go. Is there's accessibility is a big thing, and so I think the recent video kind of it kind of looked like it was like anti-accessibility or whatever, but that's not the case. If you look at accessibility, it's a little bit deeper than that. If you have like there's a difference between making, links easier for combos and then taking away complex combos. Like even like games like Guilty Gear have like buffers, input buffers and stuff like that. So there's certain things that I think accessibility things that make sense and some things that don't. And then there are games like Fantasy Strike and Rising Thunder that have a totally new approach. And actually, I like those games. And I like how those games are being created. I think it's creating new innovation in this kind of genre that's been stuck. But then at the same time, is a Rising Thunder mechanic appropriate for established franchises like Street Fighter? And I would say no. But Rising Thunder was built ground up with one button specials in mind. They have a cooldown system. And it changes the meta in a very interesting way. And so, I mean, I'm really happy to see that kind of stuff. So I kind of want to do a thing on accessibility. Also, another topic is glitches. Is it exploitation or is it part of the game? And I think what kind of makes fighting game players fighting gamey is I think people have kind of embraced glitches and combos came from it and all these mechanics. And there's it's interesting, For Honor, there's kind of this in the game For Honor, there's some kind of exploits that people have been discovering. And this is kind of like the jump back OS, right? So generally the hardcore fighting game guys, they kind of like oh, okay, cool, you figured this out. All right. So jump back OS, that is kind of a good option for this situation. And then it's Tokido comes out and he's like, oh, I know you're going to do that. So I'm going to, DP super you, and he did that at BAM 9 as a highlight. And I think that's what makes makes fighting games really great, right?
It's that evolution kind of the adaptation for these new things. Yeah.
Yeah, and Street Fighter V taking away that kind of stuff is just, it's kind of I think it takes away from the spirit, that spirit of finding that kind of new stuff and then seeing how people deal with that new stuff. And now we're just back to okay, he's up close. Do I when do I hit jab, or am I going to throw? And
grab, throw, strike.
That's So that's kind of the direction I feel. I'm not very fond of that direction. I hope that not every game turns out like that. I've had conversations with my friends. There's I showed them the video and there was well, yeah, it's just a logical outcome. Happened in this game, happened in this game, happened in this game. So yeah, that's gonna happen in Street Fighter. What are you gonna do about it? So I don't know. That's how I feel about that.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's pretty interesting looking at what keeps fighting games unique, obviously, as opposed to updating it the exact same way a League of Legends or something else like that would be updated. And obviously, you have a developed opinion on that. Outside of that, I mean, where else do we get to see you? Is it just going to continue to be these Core A videos? Is there anything else we should be on the watch for? Obviously, the YouTube channel will be linked down here. What should we be looking out for other than just new videos?
So I'm pretty tied up with 4A gaming. It's it takes up pretty much all my time. I have a job, so I want to stream, but I don't know what I can offer as a streamer. There's so many great streamers out there that it's I thought about it. I even bought the equipment and everything, but I've just also I'm not live kind of guy. I'm better scripted and stuff like that. So I'm toying with the idea, but I might try it just low key, see what happens. So that's possible. But yeah, mainly I'm going to be focusing on the YouTube channel, and I might put different kinds of content on there. I have a lot of small little ideas and points that I want to make that wouldn't be good for a whole analysis video. So I'm thinking about making smaller bite-sized 2-3 minute videos that explain a certain concept, or if I have a certain idea on something or perspective. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing in stone right now. So.
That would be very cool, I think, and I think you could pull that off. But I will say that these Core A videos that we've come to know and love, that are like, excuse me, like 15, 20 minutes, 20 minutes long, as doing what I do on Event Hubs, and you look at videos and you go, the normal or the average attention span is much shorter than 15 or 20 minutes. You know, you got to get someone's attention in like a good like 4 or 5 seconds, and you got to keep it. And these have been hitting it out of the park. You don't even realize that 15 minutes has gone by and the video's over, and then you're like, oh well, I didn't even realize it's 15 minutes of my life. But it's all been very good. So you're very good at the long form, but I would be very happy to see you do short form too, and do these little, like, you know, little nuggets of information as opposed to these giant lessons. But I think you could do it either way. And also I wanted to say thank you very much for coming into doing this live broadcast, coming into the live waters, even though you say that you prefer to do the scripted stuff. We very much appreciate you coming on and doing the show with us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it here.
All right, well, thank you. Everyone can check out Gerald's videos at, Core-A Gaming. I think you can look that up about anywhere and find his Twitter, his YouTube, all that. Twitter's on the screen. Thank you, Gerald, for being on the show, and thank you, John, for helping with the interview.
No problem. Thank you, everybody.
And that brings us to the end of Best of 5 this week. I'm personally a huge fan of those videos. I hope we get to see more. I hope we branch out into other games. I think that the whole analysis of games put together is very underutilized. We have a lot of, as using Hearthstone as an example, as I always do, we have stream clips of a guy rambling for an hour and 45 minutes about a concept, but we don't have 5-minute videos of a guy talking about the meat of the concept. And that's exactly what we have with Street Fighter V and Core A Gaming. So I hope we get to see more of that. I hope we get to see that on techniques within Street Fighter. There's not enough of that. There's a lot to do out there with media. So, I mean, if he hasn't done it yet, you can do it too. And I'll try to do it too. And I'm just ranting here at the end of Best of 5. That's the end of the show. Thank you, guys. See you next week. With that.